So I started seminary up there, and that's actually where Stan and Stella's Huber's son, Steve, he was up at St. John's at the same time, and we became pretty good friends at that time. And I can remember every Thursday night we would just get together and have our sort of Des Moines time and just talk about things. So at the end of the semester, I had to meet again with Father Dave, with Bishop Sharon, and Bishop Sharon said, I don't want you to stay at St. John's because I don't want you to get any ideas. I'm like, well, what sort of ideas are you talking about? He says, I don't think you should stay at St. John's because you might stay there, or think you should stay there. So he said, I want you to go out to Catholic University. I'm like, nah, thanks, Bishop, I don't think that's such a hot idea. I think St. John's is really where I should stay. And he says, no, I think you should go out to Catholic U. And I pushed back and I said, no, I've been praying about it. And I really do think that I should stay at St. John's. And finally he said to me, look, you're going to Catholic U. Yes, Bishop. And Father Dave was good. He said, you just say yes. You say yes. Obedience is a good thing. So we went out to Catholic U, 2 years, really great time. But at the end of the 2 years, I was meeting with my advisor, and he said to me, you seem unsettled about something. I said, well, yeah, I don't doubt that I'm being called to being a priest. I'm just not so sure that I want to be like in a rural parish. And he looked at me, he's like, do you know where your diocese is? I said, well, yeah. And he says, do you realize that while Des Moines is a great place, your diocese is not just the city of Des Moines? That the bishop, just like he sent you here, could send you into one of those small towns in the diocese. And he said, you better be sure that this is really what you want before you go into the next year where diaconate ordination would happen. So I remember just going and then to my spiritual director just saying, man, I'm not so sure this is really what I want and I had spent the summer before at Christ the King as a summer intern. And not a lot happens in some parishes in the summer. That is not the case here at St. Pius, by the way. But in some parishes, they're just really, really quiet. Christ the King that summer was really, really quiet. And I just thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to be bored out of my mind. I'm not so sure this is really, so like I had all of these doubts. And so my spiritual director said, you've got these doubts. Spend some time in Arizona, or spend some time away, resolve them, so that when you say yes, you can say yes with your whole heart. So that's when I started looking, and my oldest sister is down in Arizona. So I went down, lived in Arizona, taught for 2 years in Chandler, which is one of the ring suburbs of Phoenix. I realized that I was only supposed to have a half hour, and I'm already at 35 minutes, so I'm sorry. I absolutely loved being a third grade teacher. The hardest day of my life so far was my last day. It was May 31st, 2000. It was my last day of teaching, and I can remember the kids left the classroom, and I closed the door and I just wept. I wept for like about 20 minutes. At that time, I had already applied at St. John's and had been accepted and was due to start my candidacy period of postulancy in early June. And I just remember thinking, I've just made the biggest mistake of my life. This is not where I'm supposed to be, and what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I should stay here in Arizona because I'm meant to be a third grade teacher. So going into my monastic life, I remember just this huge sense of, am I really doing the right thing? But the reason why I chose monastic life, so before you despair on me here, was because when I was down in Arizona, I belonged to St. Benedict's Parish after doing the parish shopping down there, and it was a nice smaller parish. I had tried St. Tim's, which was like the mega parish, and it was just too large, and being the introvert, I didn't quite know how to connect in there. So, but everybody said to me, you're going to be a great priest one day. You're going to be an amazing priest. I'm like, no, I've already kind of like done that, discerned that out. Probably not where God's calling me to be. I really thought that God wanted me to be a third grade teacher. But everybody kept saying, no. You really need to go into seminary again. You need to pursue this. And I mean, the youth group that I was helping, being a minister of, I mean, like everything that I was doing, you really should be a priest. So I took that to heart, and I thought, well, I've done the diocese, so I'm going to go up and try Collegeville. And when I did my interviews at Collegeville, one of the really great things is that I talked to a couple of the brothers who had taught at Red Lake, which is an Indian reservation way up north. And they had actually been elementary school teachers. So I thought, okay, there's a possibility here. So I can do this as a priest, as a monk, and do the teaching thing. Fast forward a couple of years, 2002 happens, which is not a real beautiful part of our church history, and Boston, all that other stuff. I can remember talking to the abbot, and the abbot saying, yeah, you're never going to be in a classroom by yourself with kids. I'm like, okay. So, it was one of those moments where I had to okay, so God, where are you in this? Where are we in this journey? So I still knew that God was calling me to priesthood. That never actually surprising to me ever was a doubt in my mind. I mean, to be honest with you, and Joanne actually alluded to this, I mean, since Father Nugent, when I was a 5th grader and learned how to serve, said to me, you should think about being a priest, that's something I've always thought about. It's always been in the back of my mind. Father Acre's prayer group was in the back of my mind. This lady in Nogales was in the back of my mind. That part I've always known. It was just, how was I going to be a priest? And so at St. John's, part of the discernment process was, so how I thought I was going to act as a priest wasn't how I was going to do this. So what was this going to look like? And so the abbot actually was really good. He said, well, I know you don't want to do high school kids. Would you be a college professor? I was like, yeah, that actually wouldn't be a bad gig. And so, and there were lots of monks who were priests and college professors and all that sort of stuff. So he said, but before you do that, I want you to go to a parish, spend about 1.5 years, 2 years in the parish, just learn how to be a priest. We'll send you away. And so that's what happened. I went, ordained January of 2005, February 2005, got my first assignment at St. Boniface Parish in Cold Spring, Minnesota. I stayed there until August of 2008. When I went back to Catholic University, where the bishop or the abbot said to me, so get your degree at Catholic U, and then you can come back and teach. And I'm like, okay. Well, halfway through my time at Catholic U, I remember meeting with the abbot and saying, I don't think I really want to do the college professor thing. He looks at me and like, well, what do you mean? And he says, I mean, are you afraid? No, I'd already passed my comprehensive exams, and all I had to do was the little paper that you have to do. I said, no, it's not that at all. It's just all of my colleagues, all they can talk about is the next article, the next book they're going to write. They are so excited to be professors. I miss being in a parish. And he looks at me and he's like, what? And I said, yeah, I really want to go back to parish ministry. And he said, but I didn't think you wanted to be a parish priest. And I said, I didn't either. I'm out here, and what I most enjoyed was being at Our Lady of Mercy in Potomac, Maryland, where I was doing my weekend help. I said, that's where I get excited. The other stuff was all drudgery, but actually going out into the parish was what I wanted to do. So he said, look, finish the degree, and then we'll talk. So, I did the paper that I was supposed to do, defended it, all that other fun stuff. And at the end he said, so do you still want to be a parish priest? And I said, yes. And so he said, okay, well, I'd like you to just teach a couple courses. So St. John's prep school, undergraduate, we also have a School of Theology seminary. So I taught in the School of Theology seminary for our the seminarians. I taught the presiding course and the preaching course. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I did that when I was just a solo pastor, and I had St. Boniface. Come 2000, so that was 2013. 2017, I got 2 more parishes. 2020, in the midst of COVID, I got a 4th parish. And so needless to say, the teaching part kind of fell off. But in all of this, being a monk and being a priest, I was still trying to figure out, okay, so how do these two still go together? Now it comes to the Camino. So do you remember what I told you the definition of a pilgrim was, or pilgrimage?
Yeah.
It's a journey to a holy place. A pilgrim is somebody who is on a journey to a holy place. On the Camino, what I learned, and I said this at the very beginning, is that the holy place was actually the journey itself. Everything that I've been talking to you about is part of my holy place. It's part of my particular journey. What I wasn't aware of until I was on the pilgrimage itself was just how much I was missing the holiness of it. Because sometimes I was just too fixated on myself. Sometimes I was too fixated on the things that were happening in the world, like what was happening in Boston and all of that was going on. Sometimes I was just too fixated on what other people thought I should be doing in my life, or what other people's expectations for me were, that I wasn't actually able to see the marvels that God was working. So that exercise that I had you all do in church was actually what I was doing in that journey of going to, or being on the journey, that holy place, is having to actually ask myself, well, what are the marvels that God is doing in my life? Where are these blessings? And what I kept coming back to is, where is it that I find God? Well, I find God working in a parish. And, I really, I love St. Boniface. It's my first parish, and so it has a really special place in my heart. I like being here at St. Pius a lot. I wasn't real sure what St. Pius was going to be, but it really has been just an amazing experience because, again, it's just this holy place where I'm experiencing God's presence. Part of what I also became really clear to me on the Camino was just that how important my family was. The fact that I could only see them 2 or 3 times a year, I didn't realize how hard that was on my own, just my spiritual life, my emotional life. I think you all know my mom died in November of 21, and it wasn't anything expected. She had ended up having a major stroke, and before they could do anything, the damage was just too severe. So my siblings and I and my dad, we had the privilege of being on her pilgrimage with her, that final pilgrimage, and the entire journey was an incredibly holy time. But I realized that, part of what my heart was longing for was to be able to experience that not just in those key moments, but in part of the daily moments. So as I was walking along the Camino and, doing a lot of, okay, so where's God? Who am I? What's in the midst of this? Where have I just been putting on blinders? What do I need to work on in terms of forgiveness? I mean, all of those things that we need to do to make it holy ground. It's not just like holy ground all of a sudden appears, but we have these processes that we need to do. We need to look at ourselves, the mistakes that we've made, the expectations we had for ourselves, and being a perfectionist, that was really hard. But that's why those 3 weeks of just solitude were so amazing for me, because I really did have this experience of just of holiness, of that holy place. What I really learned is that a pilgrimage is about self-emptying. And that day that I took my simple vows, September 14th, 2001, was also the Feast of the Triumph of the Cross. That's what it was called pre-2011. Now it's called the Exaltation of the Cross. And the second reading is from St. Paul's letter to the Philippians. It's the great hymn that St. Paul sings. And Jesus emptied himself. And I didn't write it down because I could do this from memory earlier today. It'll come in just 2 seconds. Basically, he emptied himself. He took on human flesh, made himself lower than the angels to raise us up. And part of the Camino is really about leaving a lot of things behind. It's funny, one of the ladies that I met in the last 2 weeks that I was on the Camino was a woman from Germany. She has one son and a husband, had been in a job, and just all of a sudden decided without training or anything like that she was just going to walk the Camino. So she started in León, which is probably about 300 kilometers away from Santiago, and there's a huge backpack. I mean, just huge. The rule of thumb on the Camino is that your backpack should weigh no more than 10% of your body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds, your backpack should be no more than 20 pounds. You're also supposed to carry at least 5 liters of water. Each liter weighs about a pound. So now water is kind of important. You can't walk and live without water. So now all the stuff that you thought was so important, you've got to make room for the water. You know the other thing that actually weighs something? Food. Do you know when you're walking along, there aren't always restaurants out in the middle of nowhere? So you got to kind of like have bread and apples and those other things. Never bananas. Bananas, blah. You're learning a few things about me. I cannot stand bananas. I can't stand the smell of bananas. Why people eat them, I have no idea. It just absolutely disgusts me to no end. And then you're going to meet Father Daniel, who like survives sometimes on bananas. Like he'll come into the office and he's like, "Want a banana?" And I'm like, so anyway, but I mean, all of that actually weighs something. So 20 pounds, 5 pounds of water, probably about a pound of food. So now you think about how much clothes wear, or how much they weigh, how much, shampoo and all those other things. So she was like leaving behind a curling iron. She was leaving behind makeup. She was leaving behind all of these sorts of things, and trust me, I, earlier on, had left behind quite a bit of stuff. I didn't have the curling iron and the makeup. But, it's like, oh, but what about this jacket? I might need this jacket. I'm probably going to need this jacket. And after you've walked for a couple kilometers, you realize, I really don't need this jacket. And the jacket actually weighs something. So, I mean, it's that process of self-emptying. And, that's what I have to continually remind myself, is that as I'm on this journey to the holy place, which itself is the journey, that I have to continually just ask myself, okay, so what is it that I'm carrying that I need to let go? What is it that I'm holding on to that just really does not matter? And honestly, for me, a lot of that was other people's expectations, because being a middle child, I'm a pleaser. And I like to make people happy. Actually, Mr. Vernowski at the school has a leadership group, and he had us all take an assessment. And my assessment came back that I'm a mediator, which did not surprise me at all, because that's what I've done my entire life between my older sisters and my younger brothers. But that's one of the things, though, is I'm the person who doesn't want the conflict. I want everybody to be happy, and so I sometimes take on their things. And I've had to learn, okay, so part of what I need to do is just simply let this go. So being on this pilgrimage, and I shared the story of how I actually decided to come back to Des Moines at Mass. I'm not going to repeat that for you right now. But this journey really has been one of just incredible power and importance for me. I'm still now, as I said at the very beginning, I'm in a novitiate again, because I'm still a monk, but I'm not a monk. I'm a priest. I mean, that part's no doubt. But I belong to St. John's, but I don't belong to St. John's. I don't belong to Des Moines, but somehow I belong to the Diocese of Des Moines. I'm in this kind of like weird place. But there's something really great about being in this weird place. Because here I'm having to, once again, just ask myself, so what am I holding on to in terms of just my own identity that probably is not that important? What is important? Where do I need to empty myself so that Christ can fill me a little bit more? So I think with that, because holy cow, I told you I was not going to talk very long, and I talked longer than I had planned and I had rehearsed earlier today. And believe it or not, I just have 4 bullet points. So with that, I think I'm going to end. You'll hear more about my journey, I'm sure, but yeah, I really am pleased to be here. I'll end by telling you, I really did not think I would be placed at St. Pius. So Joanne told you last fall I did live across the street in 3664. At one point I had 1 dog, another time I had both of my dogs. So Toby, who's the black and white, is the one that I've always had with me. Mickey was with Rascal and Father Cletus, and then I brought Mickey down, so Father Cletus just had Rascal. But, I mean, we were walking the neighborhoods. I mean, I was going out to Walker Johnson. I learned where Phil McGrath's house was before I even knew who Phil McGrath was. All I knew about it was that he was a Catholic. He liked St. Francis, but not a big dog fan. And if you've ever walked on the path, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because he has a little sign that says, please keep your dogs on the other side. Don't let them do their business on my yard. And at first I thought it was really funny, and I still do think it's funny, so don't think that this is a critique or criticism. But I'm just sort of like, okay, so who is this person? I'm like, I bet they belong to St. Teresa's. I don't know why I had the idea that they belong to St. Teresa's. And so when he came up and told me who he was, I'm just like, you're the guy. I thought you were St. Teresa's guy. But in all honesty, I never thought I would be here because I thought even coming to Des Moines, there is no way that Bishop Johnson in his right mind would put a new guy to the diocese in such a large parish. I really thought I was going to be Missouri Valley. Because I figured that there were going to be like 6 other priests who were going to be fighting for St. Pius. And I don't know if they were or not, he hasn't told me that. But no, he just, when I met with him, he said, I've been praying a lot about it, and I think that this is where God wants me to put you. And I can tell you, I was incredibly humbled and in awe of the bishop when he said that to me, because I realized that, here I was working with somebody who just doesn't make decisions. I mean, he certainly prays about those decisions. And I couldn't argue with him. Not like I argued with Bishop Sharon before. Because when he told me, well, this is where God has told me he wants me to put you, I was like, oh, I'm not arguing with God anymore because I'm supposed to be emptying myself. But it really has been humbling. The other thing that I haven't told many people is that I thought, well, this is just one parish. What am I going to do? I've had 4 parishes, and I've been running around like a chicken with his head cut off. And I thought, one parish, I'm gonna have to find things for myself to do. So I went and I found all my old Latin books because I thought, I'm gonna make sure that I can brush up on my Latin and actually the grammar and everything. And I thought, I really need to brush up on my biblical Greek, so I'm gonna do that. I mean, I made up this plan before I started here about what I needed to be doing because I thought I was gonna be bored out of my mind. Needless to say, you all have surprised me in a very good way. I have not been bored yet, thank you very much, and I know I'm not going to be. There's so much that's happening here, and it's such a dynamic place. I know that we are on a journey, and the journey itself is a very holy place. And we're going to the ultimate holy place together, and that's heaven. So in doing so, I really am excited to be here. I'm glad that you're finding my humor, even in the midst of kind of a foggy head. It's humbling, it's gratifying. I see a lot of marvels that God is working in. When I talk to my family and my friends, I do tell them about the amazing things that are already happening here. As I said in the masses last weekend, I am so excited that on Friday Father Daniel comes back. And it's partly because he brings an incredible energy that is amazing, and I feed off of his energy. As I said, I'm such an introvert, he is such an extrovert. I need, sort of that counterbalance. I didn't know the guy And he'll tell you the funny story of when I first met him, just really very briefly now. So Father Dave had me come down in May to meet staff and everything like that. And at the very end of the day, I mean, I had been meeting with everybody, and he brought me, did a tour of things, blah, blah, blah. He says, oh, by the way, do you want to meet Father Daniel? And it's like 6 o'clock at night, and I'm like, sure, why not? So we go over and we knock at his house, and he invites us in, and Father Dave and Father Daniel start talking, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm just about ready to fall asleep, and I'm looking at his degree from Rome, his degree from Pittsburgh, his pictures from Ghana, and looking over at the books that he was reading, all this sort of stuff. And he said to me when we started together, he says, you didn't say more than 2 words to me. I'm like, well, A, I was so tired, and B, the 2 of you were talking. I wasn't going to interrupt, I just wanted to hear what you were saying. He said, I thought you were the oddest person. That is a very true statement. I know that's where the monk part is still going to come out very quickly. Because I mean that's just being an introvert, is that I check out my surrounding before I will engage in anything. But it really, he is just so amazing, and I know that once he gets back, we're going to be able to find our rhythm. And as we find our rhythm and we find your rhythm, we're going to find a new rhythm then together. And I think that's been the hard part about this month is I'm in this time of not only waiting to figure out what I do in Des Moines, but I'm also in this time of waiting to figure out what we're doing here together. I mean, I know it's about loving God, loving others, making disciples, restore all things in Christ. And I know God has a plan for us on this journey, but I don't know exactly what is this next piece. But I know that Father Daniel's going to have a big part of that. I know clearly all of you are going to have a big part of it. It's clearly not about me. But I know that there's a lot that's coming our way. And there's an excitement that I'm feeling that I hope all of you are feeling as well. So with that, I'm going to end. I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Thanks, Father. It couldn't have been a more perfect speaker to open us up tonight, so thank you so much for everything. I also want to thank the Ave Maria Circle for delicious desserts, and I hope you all had time to partake of those. And then, in case any of you are going to leave before the business meeting, although Carmen is momentarily going to step up here, our October meeting will be hosted by St. Irene's Circle.
I'm sorry.
And we will have a speaker. The title is, You Might Be a Church Lady If. And we'll find out what the if is and how many things that our speaker has done. So, anyway, Carmen?
It hurts.